I've never met these police. Who are they? And when your Instagram's full of 33s, do you love Jesus Christ or, do you have some other ulterior motives? How you doing?
How's it going?
Good. How you doing today?
Want to sit down?
Of course, yeah. Go for it. You want a water? I got a water over here.
No, I'm good. I got a free thing.
Nothing wrong, man. How's it going today?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thanks.
So your position is that COVID-19 is caused by 5G?
I mean, it's out there, right?
Yeah.
So why not, just put it out, just call a pink elephant what it is and just talk about it.
So why do you think that it's caused by 5G?
Well, I think that all electronic, microwave, ionic or non-ionic frequencies in the air that we use to telecommunicate, like through radio or our phones, are radiation poisoning. So I think that the ether is being
What is
vibrated
radiation?
at a certain frequency, and human beings are just getting used to that frequency and they get sick.
What is radiation?
So, what is it?
Yeah, what is radiation?
Well, it's an emission through the ether to communicate
Communicate?
or show visuals.
So radiation, from what I understand, is electrons. Radiation of electrons.
Yeah.
Radio waves don't emit electrons.
Okay.
So how could they be radiation?
So are you saying that electrons are better for human beings to absorb than radiation?
No, electrons are radiation, but radio waves aren't electrons. So if 5G is radio waves and electrons are radiation, then radio waves and 5G can't be radiation.
Okay. Are they non-ionic or ionic frequencies?
What do you think ionic means?
I'm asking you a question.
Well,
What do you think they are?
I'm asking you, what do you think?
I know,
ionic
but we're not going to play the game where I ask you a question and then you ask me a question because you want to prove my ignorance or
Well,
something.
no, that's not the point.
So,
it's what you mean by the word ionic depends on how I'm going to answer. Like, if you think that ionic, because ionic has to do with transition of energy through electrons to other particles, and radio waves don't do that in the same way as radiation does. So, depending on what you mean by what ionic means, would depend on how I answer your question.
Okay. So would you, if you were able to be in a microwave, you put your hand in it and it was able to be sealed off, would you put your hand in a microwave?
It depends on the level of the vibrations. If it's too high, yes. If it's too low, it would not.
Okay. But
like-
you would, even if it was too low, you would still do it, even though it's not a natural environment a human body should be in.
I'm not sure what you mean because we're all in radiation every day. Like the sun emits radiation. So radiation given off
By the sun, meaning the 93 million mile away ball of fire that we see in the sky?
Yeah, that gives off radiation. It emits electrons. That's how we see it.
Okay.
So we are constantly in a state of radiation, but just like we're constantly in a state of CO2. There's CO2 in the atmosphere, and it doesn't kill us unless we have too much of it. As long as there's not too much, it's totally fine. So everything within moderation, kind of a thing. Radiation is the same way. As long as it's to a low level, it doesn't affect us. Like even when we're in an airplane, we're at a higher level of radiation than we are here on Earth because we're farther up in the atmosphere and there's less resistance. So having radiation isn't a problem as long as it's a low enough amount that it won't have a sufficient enough risk to cause serious damage.
What are the frequencies for 5G? Do you happen to know?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. Do you think, have you ever looked into even 3G or 4G and the radiation or the different certain vibration that the phone gives off and you have it in your pocket? Have you ever looked into that, how it affects your body?
Yes, it doesn't do anything. It's the same thing. Is that the frequency isn't the amount, it's the magnitude that matters.
Okay, so when you hold your phone up to your ear, you're saying that there's been no studies to show after a 5 to 20 minute conversation that the person's side of their head has radiation poisoning?
No, it doesn't have radiation poisoning. It has more blood flow to it, but it's not radiation poisoning.
Well, I would call it radiation poisoning, and you would call it something else. So,
What do you understand radiation poisoning to be?
well, I understand that it's not a natural environment that a human being should be in. And since the early 1900s, that the military defense department started implementing Morse code and stuff like that to transmit over the airwaves from even one country to another, it was a massive breakthrough, right? And so for the airwaves to be at a certain oscillation and vibration and human beings to be in that, there were some correlations with that being introduced and people getting sick at the time.
Okay, but what is radiation poisoning? Because you said that there are studies that when someone holds a phone up to their head that it causes radiation poisoning in that side of the brain. What is radiation poisoning?
It's being next to something that's transmitting in electrons or some kind of a frequency from A to B. And so if you're putting that next to your body and we're water, okay, and we're a sentient being, and we absorb that, and and our blood, like you said, rushes to that area, it's going to oscillate at a certain vibration, and then when it stops, it goes back into our bodies, but then we're putting poisonous cells back into our body. It's just like, why would anybody ever microwave their water to make coffee?
Well, yeah, I understand what causes radiation poisoning is being next to a radioactive material, but what literally is radiation poisoning? What is the problem? Do you know? If you don't know, that's fine. I'm not.
I mean, no, I guess my point is that whether you feel everything in moderation, like we're Catholic again or something, I feel like, I guess
I'm an
you're not,
atheist,
well, okay, but do you ever wear a mask?
no, I don't.
Okay, fair enough. So I'm just saying, like, I guess we're talking about maybe two different things.
Okay, that's
And
fair
I'm
enough.
seeing it in a different way. Like, do you know what the ether is? Are you familiar with what the concept of the ether
Well,
is?
there's a bunch of different concepts. The luminarious ether, is that the one we're talking about?
Or like the ability to have particles in the air and use a certain frequency to use those particles to transmit, communication through the airwaves.
Radio transmission? Like, because the ether, I understand it is a theory in physics that there is a certain substance that permeates everything in the universe and is the foundation of reality. It was disproved by like Einstein and other people through the Michelson-Morley experiment. I'm not sure what you mean by ether. I think it sounds like what you mean is just radio transmission, because you're right that there are signals that are transmitted through electrons like bouncing in them.
Yeah,
It's also
but
sound
I would say
that.
that the ether is also the liquid environment in which we live, which through our spiritual sense we manifest out as human beings,
No idea
and
what
that's
that
what we
means.
see. I know.
So, like, is it
Do you believe that we're spiritual beings having a physical experience?
No, I think we're purely physical.
Okay.
So the ether, in your sense, is a spiritual thing. It's a non-physical thing in addition to physical reality.
Yeah, I mean, like I see the green of those plants behind me because they're programmed through the ether, which is creation, to be a plant and to look like that because they have a certain code to it.
Okay, and you think that 5G operates on this ether?
I think it uses the air and it almost in a sense distills it in a way and removes oxygen or water molecules from the air.
It removes water molecules from the air.
Yeah, a lot of people, like with the 5G symptoms, they seem to have a problem breathing and catching their breath, and they're really short of breath. So the idea would be that in certain areas, a person who's experiencing 4G or 5G radiation poisoning, because they're not getting enough oxygen, because it's not available to
Wait,
them in
so,
the air.
So it's removing water or removing oxygen? Because those,
Well, I mean, I don't have all the answers.
because water is hydrogen and two oxygen molecules put together.
Have you ever
Oxygen.
seen it before?
Yes, you can actually observe it in the lab. It's like we do that.
You observe water? I mean, I'm observing water behind you.
Yeah, we can break it down into single molecule parts, and we can actually see it on an electron microscope.
Have you ever pressurized water to the point where you make it solid?
Ice, yeah.
No, I mean like just regular room temperature water.
Well, that's yeah. So
Have you ever seen video of that?
yes, you can do that. That's
pretty cool, huh?
Temperature is related to pressure, so if the pressure is increased, it requires the temperature is essentially lowered at the same time, effectively. And the same thing, like if you just put water in space, it's going to immediately crystallize because it's not pressurized. So yes, you can do that.
Okay.
But,
I mean, I just thought it was cool,
But
that's all.
so you're saying that 5G takes either water or oxygen out of the air.
Yeah, I think it uses the ether, if you will, as a means to conduct itself through, and what, you probably not agree with this, but, chemtrailing and whatnot that we've been experiencing the last 15 years, which is now documented that they've been doing it, and the particles that they use in the air may or may not be like magnetic or, have
Magnetic
certain,
particles.
well, certain properties that would allow frequency to move through the ether, quote, right? Faster
I had a question
than
though,
before.
You said the ether is like our essence, the supernatural essence, and you're saying that 5G towers can somehow interact with this supernatural essence. Now, as far as I know, everything in science is just physical. Like the 5G, all it does is physical things. So how does this physical 5G thing interact with the ether? Because if we could do that, that's a pretty miraculous discovery we've made. How do we use
Well,
this?
I mean, what have you done? I mean, let's be real here. I mean, have you discovered any of this stuff, or were you already born here and then you just read about it?
Yeah, well, I can
Okay, like
actually-
me.
Well,
right?
no, it's not just
So
that you read about it. It's that you can read about it and then repeat the experiments and do the discovery yourself.
have
which
you
I haven't.
repeated 5G stuff and like
For radio
taken?
waves, I've done radio wave
Have you
experiments.
taken like EMF wave like receivers and then gone to areas where people say 5G is being installed and seen the frequency levels get raised up and then they leave that area and they go down?
Yeah, that's fine, but the frequency isn't actually a problem. Like frequency is everywhere. It's just the magnitude that's the problem. Like in electricity, you have the voltage and the amplitude. So the voltage doesn't matter what it is; it can never hurt you. It's the amplitude that hurts you.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with frequency. The frequency isn't going to do anything unless it's the
Amplified.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
But
So
5G so the voltage, the frequency isn't going to do anything. It doesn't matter if the frequency goes up and down in different areas. That's totally fine.
has you ever looked into like how 5G has been used in the military and that it's because of its broad spectrum, it's able to do a lot of things like you could have a gun, for example, and a lot of people would call it like the Tesla gun, like it gives you a heart attack almost instantly. So a lot of people have looked into 5G and seen a lot of correlations between military technology and them being able to use it to, in a sense, progress the manipulation of fear, anxiety, hunger, sleep. And you can do this through 4G and 5G towers because they know through brain mapping, they know what those frequencies are in the human body that create those resonant frequencies.
Frequencies in the human body. What do you mean frequencies in the
Well, you hook up electrodes to your brain, your head, right?
So like an EEG?
Yeah, and then through the progression of the day, they can see how you react to something that bring you fear, and then they'll mark that frequency down, and they'll know what that means, and then they'll take 1,000 people, and they'll do it, and then they'll see, oh, okay, within 5 to 10%, it's plus or minus. This is the general frequency that causes fear, and then they'll emit that through the 4G and 5G towers.
So frequencies don't actually cause anything in the brain. A frequency is a measure of the electrical.
Well, I
current
mean,
in
I'm
the
just
brain.
using a term that, for me, like, I feel like some people can comprehend. Since your background is where you're at, you seem very, like, scientific, and because I'm not using terms that you would identify as, it's kind of probably frustrating you a
Oh
little
yeah,
bit.
for sure. That's why I can ask for clarification. Like, what do you mean by that? As well as like asking what do you mean by ion. So, but like an EEG, what it measures is the electrical signals in your brain when they peak and when they valley. And that's so there's not a frequency in your body. It's just a frequency of the rate at which you're thinking, pretty much.
You don't think the Earth and the human body have a foundational frequency?
No, because a frequency is like.
And that's where the
electrons.
spiritual side would come in.
So the spiritual side is like a physical frequency that exists in the material world.
You're asking me?
Yeah, like I'm not seeing how when you keep talking about the ether thing, you keep comparing it to a frequency. But frequencies are purely physical things. Like there's nothing non-physical about a frequency. It's like just an electron going up and down. So
I'm sure somebody knows what the frequency of the Earth is, and I can't remember what it is, but
Well, again, so I
I'll
understand
look
that
here in a minute.
frequency is like the rate at which an electron goes around an atom. So what do you mean? Because there's no like.
well, nobody's
electron-
observed that, man.
Yeah, we have. Like,
We
yes,
or
like
you have?
well, humans have and I have.
Okay.
So we
How
have
did you do that?
Electron microscope.
How did you do that? You saw an atom?
Yes, it's called an electron microscope. You can see electrons, see atoms. They do experiments with these all the time.
I don't really agree with that, but
Well, yeah,
carry on.
that's fair enough. You can just Google.
Oh, I have looked into it. I just found information that led me to that not being real life.
You could buy one and actually do the experiment yourself. Like it's not
And just observe this like thing circulating around another thing, like a little solar system.
sort of. So yeah, you could. So it makes predictions. We have this idea that there is this thing called an electron, and if we do this,
Is this a presumption?
in any argument, you start with the presumption and then you make a prediction.
So it's a
and
theory.
So every theory, like theory of gravity, theory of germ disease,
So
everything's a theory. But just so
right,
we-
but
if-
a theory doesn't make it true, though, right?
Right. Nothing makes it true unless it is true. A theory is just a
Right.
thing that explains.
So the
certain
theory of
phenomena.
viewing an atom.
No, there's no theory of viewing the atom. You can literally view the atom. So there's a theory that there's an electron, and we have this theory that there is an electron and has these properties. If that's true, then we can make a prediction that if we do this experiment that measures that level of energy, we will see this exact particle in that exact location. And then we do the experiment and find out, oh, we do see exactly that. That's a good reason to believe it's true. Like, that's how evidence works. Is you everything starts off as imaginary. Everything starts off as a hypothesis. I imagine that ends.
Yeah, like landing on the moon, for example.
Sure, we can imagine that people landed on the moon. And then you can say, if people landed on the moon, then we would expect to see these consequences that we don't know yet. Like we should be able to go to the moon, or we should be able to look with a powerful microscope with a laser and point it at the moon. And the thing they put on the moon that actually refracts
Well, that's a
light,
presumption. You at first were, it was like an idea, an imaginary idea to
Right.
do it, but then now you're assuming that things were left behind.
Well, no. So this is the thing. If we assume it happened, just no evidence, just assume it happened, then we can predict if it happened, and they left this thing up there because they said it. And if they left that thing up there, then we should be able to send a laser and bounce it off it to see it.
That's a pretty good sniper.
It's pretty easy to do that. It's just you need a laser. It's how light refraction works. And so we can do that. We can see that they put that thing exactly where they said they put that thing, and we can reflect light off it and measure the distance between the moon using that exact metric. So the way we tell if something is real and not imaginary is that it starts as imaginary. It's an idea in our head. And then we say, if it corresponds to reality and isn't just part of my imagination, then I should be able to make predictions and say, this thing, if it's a part of the world, we'll be able to predict in the future we can do this experiment and get this result. And if we do that experiment and get that result, that's a good reason to believe that the thing in our imagination is actually describing something in reality.
Yeah. Even though you haven't verified landing on the moon, right? You just look at data, numbers, and video
So
image.
You can point the laser at the moon and you can see it refract light, so that's good evidence.
No,
that
but you
someone-
haven't been there before, though. How can
I
you
don't know.
verify that there's anything there in the first place?
Well, you don't need to verify everything about it. You just need to verify one thing. If
So you
people
have
are gonna-
faith.
No, it's.
Well, it
faith is-
sounds like it.
faith
I
is
mean, it
really
sounds like
powerful.
you're putting a lot of trust into somebody who told you things were left behind on the moon,
Well, no,
and
no,
then they
I
give
can-
you
I can
these
see that.
numbers and data for you to do it, but you haven't physically landed on the moon and seen what it is they're telling you can bounce stuff off the moon from.
Right, I don't actually need to land on the moon. Like I can.
So how do you verify like extravagant claims?
This feature testable prediction. It's like I can see that car's over there. I don't need to actually go over there and touch the car. So if I can say if that.
But
car's there,
that's a logical and realistic thing you could do though, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And walk over there. So you can't logically and realistically go to the moon, can you?
If I had enough money, yeah, I could.
I mean, well, you can't scientifically go to the moon. I'm just humoring your point by you haven't verified it yourself, so you're basing a lot of your beliefs on faith, get information given to you by authority that you trust.
No, that's the experiment part. It's like if something happened, it's going to have this consequence.
But what if it didn't happen? See,
Then-
that's the
then-
thing.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
assuming
exactly.
that they landed on the moon, right?
So if it didn't happen, there would not be this thing on the moon that refracts light in every direction that we can shine a laser on.
In every direction, you know about the inverse square law?
Yes, that's just the rate at which light travels from one point to another. That doesn't.
Okay.
It's, you know what a refractor is, right? It sends light into a thing and then reflects it in all different directions. That's how a flashlight works. You have the big cone that reflects light in one direction, not the others. Refractors are.
What do you happen to know what the alleged or presumed pressure is in outer space?
Like 0?
Okay. Do you happen to know, like here on the ground, what it is?
1 Earth unit. I forget what they call it.
Okay. Could we just say 14.6 psi?
Sure.
Okay. So with those two separate pressure systems next to each other, how do they exist next to each other without a solid barrier?
Electromagnetism and gravity.
Okay. How have you proven that?
How have I proven?
Yeah, how have
what?
you verified that the higher you go up, sooner or later you're just floating in some, zero gravity water pool?
There's no water up there. It's just that's why.
Well, there is water, but that's another subject, right?
I don't think so. Because if there was water, then there would be pressure.
Well, an astronaut got water in their mask, so it's just,
Yeah. I mean, well, water.
where'd the
is
water come from?
Their body.
Okay. Enough to like where they had to come in because it was like,
That from the backpack. Because the backpack is condensed oxygen. So you breathe it. So if it's.
I think you need to look into it a little bit more.
I already know that story pretty well.
Okay.
It literally comes from the backpack. That's where the story
So
comes
again, like if I have a balloon, right, and I have a helium tank here, the helium is inside the tank, right?
from. Sure.
And then we can't see helium, can we? We can hear it come out if I open the valve, right?
Sure.
But let's turn it purple, okay, so we can see it. And it dissipates into the air. It creates equilibrium with the environment, right?
Sure.
And if we want to contain it into a balloon, then that balloon is going to turn purple. How is the helium being contained into the balloon?
Probably because there's a physical barrier between the balloon and the air.
Plastic, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then how is that any different than a solid barrier needs to be in place to separate outer space and our physical reality without outer space creating entropy and making us at the same pressure system as outer space?
Same way the water and the air don't mix together when they mix together.
Right, because they're more dense than another, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
So space, there's the same barrier between water and the air as between air and space.
so there needs to be a solid liquid foundation above us, like a firmament of some kind.
No. So the water is really dense and the air is not so dense. And then there's another thing about that's even less dense than the air. So it wouldn't be water, it would be nothing.
Okay.
essentially.
So how have you verified that up there here on Earth?
Well, you can do it in a system. You can make an electromagnetic contained system that is just air with no barrier around it. So it's just gas, barrier and other gas with no barrier, and it creates a sealed chamber just like we see.
And you need a container
No.
to show that.
No.
You can do it freely out in the air.
Yeah, you could just use an electromagnetic tube and it'll gather certain kinds of electrons around it and block out the other ones, which will create a like hydrogen barrier that there's nothing out of.
And you can go through it. Can you create something big enough for a human being to experience that?
Sure. Well, yeah, it is. Like every one of them, it's not small. It's, we do that in they're done every day in nuclear reactors. It's called a plasma barrier. That's how they
Okay.
that's how they're working on fission,
Sure.
fusion, whichever one. So yeah, we can literally observe that. We do it every day.
You don't do it every day.
Oh yeah, I've done it like once or twice.
Okay.
Every day.
But you say a lot of weed, like you sounds like you're part of a club or something. Are
Well,
you
yeah,
part of a club?
I'm generalizing the scientific community as opposed to you, just for simplicity's sake, for the most part.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not
So like I'm not
science,
part of the human race or something like that?
No, I
or-
mean we as in the scientific community who rejects your hypothesis. I'm contrasting the two hypotheses there. I don't mean it as like a derogatory thing or anything. I'm just trying to contrast the scientific worldview with the non-scientific worldview. And it's not meant to be.
No, fair enough. But it does sound like you are part of a church, though, in a sense, because, you know, the scientific body has these people who create these papers, right? And then you read them, and then you believe them.
Well, no, that's
you
the
know?
thing, is that the papers are there not just to read and believe, but that you can do the experiment and repeat it yourself.
Okay, how have you repeated going to the moon or Mars? How have you repeated that?
I haven't. I've looked at the consequences of the prediction, like if they went to the moon and they left this thing there that you can verifiably see, and I can look and see that thing, and that's verification that they went to the moon. Because it's not like it's just a random thing that exists anywhere. It's a very specific kind of mechanism that's human design called a refractor that can do this very specific thing. So having it just be randomly on the moon for no reason would make no sense. So it's far more reasonable. Like, yeah, they actually went to the moon and left this specific human design mechanism right there, right where they said it was, so we could see it.
Okay. You mind if we switch?
Would you disagree with that? Would you think that there's this very specific human
You're
design thing?
you're presuming a lot of things that you haven't verified yourself.
Well, just take that
So-
one thing. There's this one refractor thing.
There's not.
We can see it. We can literally point a laser at it and see it reflect light. It's only that's
Okay.
light.
But there's nothing on the moon, man.
And how is it reflecting
Regardless of whatever it is that you think is happening there. And I know people that are in the chat that could probably do a lot better job than me, but I'll just make it very simple. Nobody's ever landed on the moon.
Okay, that's a nice presumption, but again, so we have this thing on the moon that we can see.
We don't have anything on the moon. You don't have anything on the moon.
No, this is literally this. You don't
So you're not part of
This is
whatever
like literally
club.
That car is over there. We can literally. See
But
there
you
is a
can
thing.
go over to that car.
Right. So we can.
So
see
you
there's-
can't go to the moon.
So we can see there's a thing on the moon, and we can point a laser at it, and it reflects light. Well, that's a fact. That's an objective fact. Anyone can test this. It's irrefutable. You can point a laser at this specific spot, it reflects light, and sends the laser back, and you can see it. Why does that happen?
I just,
Something has to
we
be
just
there.
got to move on because it just doesn't feel like it's.
Well,
You're
no,
presuming a lot of things,
there's
and I
no
want to ask
presumption
you
there.
about one presumption that's going on right now.
This isn't a presumption. We can literally.
It is a presumption. Nobody's ever landed on the
No, I
moon,
haven't said. I didn't say anything
so
about
there's
landing on the moon.
nothing on the moon that we left behind.
I didn't say anything about landing on the moon. So
But you need that
no,
part of the story to say that there's something on the moon that you can reflect the laser off of.
No. We look at the moon.
And what
in
kind of
the night.
laser are you using to be able to do that?
Powerful laser. You can buy one on Amazon. But so again, we don't need to presume anything about landing on the moon. We know we look at the moon at night, and we can point a laser at exactly the location, and something is reflecting the laser back. This is a fact.
Okay, but that doesn't prove that we
Correct.
landed on the moon, man.
Correct.
I'm
So-
sorry.
So why is
You
it
know?
there? What is the best explanation that this thing reflects light in every direction exactly in that one line, one spot? What is the best explanation of that? Now, it seems like the best explanation is that people designed this specific refracting object and placed it there because we can replicate the result. We can say, well, what else can do that? When we can look at Earth and say, well, when we reflect light on this object, it doesn't do that. But when we reflect that on a specifically highly complicated refractor, it does exactly what we see it doing on the Earth. So it seems reasonable to include that this thing that we can reflect light on here on Earth.
How did it get there?
We probably put it there.
Probably.
Yeah, so that's the best explanation. We know one of these things that we reflect light on is also there, and it's possible we teleported it. Maybe aliens put it there. Maybe it was just quantum fluctuation, or someone went to the moon and put it there. It seems like the best explanation is someone went to the moon and put it there, which is why we see that when we reflect light off the thing on the moon. It does exactly what the refractors that NASA built do.
So do you think that NASA could have come up with the data to make it appear that something's on the moon and then hand it out to the public and then
No, 'cause
now you
anybody-
believe it?
Anybody can do this. Like, you can go buy a laser and do this tonight.
For sure, yeah. But the laser has a certain algorithm to it, right? And it has a certain mathematical thing to it, right? Like it's about numbers and
I mean, yes.
I mean, you know what I'm trying to say? Like
I'm
there's
not exactly sure.
it's kind of its own frequency, and they figured out the frequency to use certain devices to make it appear that something is happening on the moon that's not.
So they made certain devices where that if you point every laser on the planet at this one specific spot on the moon, it'll just appear for no reason that it's reflecting light.
Is that possible?
Anything's possible.
Okay.
But that seems unlikely. So I mean,
It seems unlikely to go to the moon because you need you need a solid barrier in between two pressure systems.
Well, no, you don't. Remember, there's the thing we can build.
No, you do.
Build the
No.
two gases. We know for a fact you don't need that. And we do that in a nuclear reactor every day. There's just a gas.
We don't, and again, I mean, like, you say you're atheist, but it sounds like you're part of a, like, cult. No offense.
Well, yeah, if we can scientifically demonstrate it, that's
But you
good
don't.
reason to believe it. Yeah, no, I can. Like, you can actually build one of these on a
Have
small
you?
scale. Yes.
Okay.
This is Red's rhetoric. Love that guy.
Yeah, I bet you do.
He's great. So yeah,
Yeah.
you can actually build these things. in
And
your
you
home.
verified it by doing it on a large scale, right?
Large as in like that big? Like
No,
large?
like an Earth.
Did I build one the size of the Earth?
Yeah.
No. Do I
So,
need to?
well, you kind of do. I mean, I think that would be more scientifically viable.
Science doesn't test things by building scale models. You do realize that, right? Like you don't build a scale
Yeah, I
model.
know. You guys just make presumptions and then theories, and then you become an astrophysicist, and then you can say whatever you want, like it's gospel.
Because we can verify it. That's the key.
You haven't verified a whole lot of what you're trying to say, especially landing on the moon.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what the laser thing does, is it verifies when they're on the moon. So that's why-
I mean, if you want to believe that, that's up to you, right?
I mean, are you
fair
saying
enough.
that because there are other explanations, that therefore it doesn't verify them?
There are so many other explanations than landing on the moon. Yeah.
But that's true of everything.
Like,
so
infinitely.
Why would that not? Why
Any
would that be
idea,
this?
like the guy kayaking, and then assuming that he somehow floated off into the air and landed on the moon, like that's more realistic than 1969 technology doing it. Let alone getting past the Van Allen belt and the solid barrier thing and everything. So.
Yeah, there isn't a solid barrier.
Oh, it is. It's called the firmament, and you know that. Yeah.
The firmament. So, how do asteroids get here?
Why don't asteroids come up?
Come up?
Yeah, come upwards, like from the horizon, go upwards. I've never
they
seen
do.
one do that. Like, like how we're on a ball, right? And if we're on America, the ball here, and then we're right here, well, in relation to where we're at, it would be like this. So then the comet would be like this, and it would go by us
Yeah.
near the equator. I've never seen one do that. I've always seen them just come down from the sky down or straight across.
Usually because a meteorite has to hit the atmosphere in order to ignite so you see it. You're not like going to see it if it's just going through space and not doing anything. So the ones that just come up from the atmosphere aren't hitting the atmosphere. So you can see it do that. It does. It bounces off the atmosphere all the time. We do see those happen. So it does do that.
Okay. I mean, if you want to believe that, that's totally up to you, man.
Well, yeah, it's
Good for you.
not a belief. It's we can literally see it. So
Okay.
that's kind of the thing.
So, just to switch gears of, really why I'm here, do you believe the models and the estimations that the WHO and CDC have come up with to isolate and quarantine the American public?
What do you mean? Like, do I believe that if we reopened, it would cause a greater rate of?
Or if we never would have closed, it would have done worse or whatever?
Yeah, sure. It definitely would have done worse if we didn't close. It's just delaying the inevitable, I think.
So more presumptions.
Why?
If we don't, as government, babysit the American public, they're going to make it just crap. So we have to regulate and tell everybody to quarantine because these are the numbers and these are the deaths that would happen. And we haven't seen anywhere near those deaths right now. Is that something you could probably agree with?
Well, yeah, that's because we're quarantined.
Well, even with the mitigation that they prescribed, we should have more deaths.
I don't think so. Why would you say that?
How long have you been on this? I mean, what do you do? Like, do you not pay attention at all to what was going on in March to right now?
Yeah, and I'm pretty familiar with the papers that predict the amount of deaths, and we're not at all away from the predictions anymore. Right? I don't know what you mean when you say there should be more deaths. Like,
Well, I mean, there should be, right?
why? Like, why would you say that?
Because that's what the models prescribed. That's what
No,
they
don't.
showed.
Like, what models are you looking at? They don't at all.
The WHO and the CDC and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation models.
They match the predicted results. I don't know what you mean they're not matching.
Really? Like, so what we have as deaths is what we're supposed to have, even when they inflated the deaths because people that, fell in these, speed bumps here and cracked their head open and unfortunately pass away. They get tested for COVID and they're positive and then they get labeled as a COVID death.
I'm not sure what you mean. So the reported deaths is going to be lower than the actual deaths because not everyone goes to the hospital when they get sick. They stay at home, especially in America because it costs money to go to the hospital. So a lot of the deaths from COVID.
Well, it depends upon what kind of insurance you have, right?
Exactly. I mean, lots of people don't have insurance. They can't afford it. And so if you get something that looks like a cold, you're probably just going to stay at home and just wait for it to go away rather than spend $100 to go to the doctor. And so a lot of people die at home from COVID, but it doesn't get reported because they're not tested in the hospital.
How do you know they died of COVID?
It's just the numbers. Like if we can look.
But you just said that they haven't been tested, but they died of COVID. So how do you verify? How do you? You just sounds like you're just like
Well, we look at the
presuming
average
things
deaths,
again.
We look at the average deaths of this time period of the year throughout the year, and then we look at the increase that has for this year, and we say, well, that's probably due to COVID, since that's the one difference between this year and all the other years. And then we would subtract the amount of reported deaths, and we say, here are the number of unreported deaths from COVID. So I mean, it's pretty logically simple to do that. I don't know why that would be difficult.
So you agree with everything that's going on right now, like the quarantine and?
Oh no, I mean I think that I'm not sure about how the quarantine should go because I think we're just delaying the inevitable. I think we can't stay closed for a full year to wait for the vaccine. So we're probably going to reopen.
So you think a vaccine could come out this time next year?
Yeah, it's possible. That's the earliest possible.
The earliest a vaccine has ever been approved is 4 years.
Yeah, that's right. Because it has to go through the FDA.
So don't you think normies would even say, hey, even the earliest vaccine is 4 years. I would give it 2023. That's 3 years. And you won't even bend. You honestly will just be in first in line at your local wherever to get the vaccine.
I'm not high risk of dying, so I just wouldn't care for the most part even if I got it. But the reason it takes 4 years, the earliest for a vaccine, is because it has to go through mice testing.
But we're not
testing.
mice.
Exactly. So in the case of COVID,
So why would you even start testing a vaccine on mice?
because mice have a similar genetic structure to humans.
But you're putting, it kind of seems
that's
really
different
weird
topic.
though. No, but I mean, you're using a vaccine that's baseline, right?
Yeah.
And do you know 3 to 5 ingredients that are in a vaccine?
A vaccine is a virus. It's just a weaker virus.
Yeah, I know, but what are the ingredients that they would put in a vaccine?
They don't put any ingredients. They take ingredients out of the virus.
Okay, I think you might want to look into what they put in vaccines.
So a virus is it's a biological material that goes in and injects DNA into cells, causing it to replicate itself.
Are they alive?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Viruses are alive?
yes, they're living things. They have metabolism. That's what living means. So a vaccine, what it does is it takes out the DNA, puts in the virus. So the virus will still infect the cell, but it won't reproduce. It makes it weaker. And so your immune system.
That's not always true, though. You know that, right? That's not always the case.
Pretty sure that's what a vaccine always is.
That's not always the case.
pretty sure that's what it
Well,
actually
you
is.
can say
There's
pretty
other
sure,
coatings,
but
there's other kinds of things like an antibacterial, which is a different thing.
no, but I'm just saying, like, not always does a person who gets the vaccine get part of it. Sometimes they literally get the entire thing.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely true. There is a small percent chance that having the vaccine could infect you because you can't remove the DNA from every possible one.
No, I mean, the vaccine itself has the entire thing in it.
There's a small percent chance of that happening. Yes, I agree. So there's
Okay.
a chance of using the vaccine to get the virus. It does happen. It's a very small chance. I don't know. And that was an issue.
Well, I mean, you're saying that it doesn't happen, and I'm saying that it does.
Well, no, I agree with you. It does.
Okay.
It does happen.
We just
I'm
have
saying- I'm saying
clarification here.
you said that. I thought you meant that there was something else other than just the virus without the DNA.
Well, there is. I mean, there's,
Like,
you know, do you know a guy named Stanley Plotkin? Do you ever go on YouTubes? I would assume so, because...
Yes, I'm a full-time YouTuber actually.
Oh, very nice. What do you do?
I debate philosophy.
Okay, fair enough. Did you know I was going to be here today?
No, I didn't. I had no idea. I just saw you.
Right on.
You on YouTube too? Is that being broadcasted?
Oh, every once in a while, yeah.
Do you mind if I strip the footage from my channel?
Yeah, do your thing, yeah. I got a YouTube channel. Here.
Awesome, thanks. Check it out. Yeah, it's cool. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you stopping by.
Do
You know, I mean,
Nathan Thompson?
I do.
Yeah, he's awesome. I did
What's your handle on YouTube?
TJump, TJump. My name is Tom Jones.
Okay.
I also debated Wotan, Flat Earther, he was fun. Who's the other guy? Mark Sargent?
Mark Sargent? Yeah. What about Nathan Thompson?
Yeah, I met him in person. He went
Yeah.
he does debates on modern day debates. And so I met him in Austin. He did a debate against Team Skeptic.
Yeah, okay. You must love Team Skeptic.
No, Nathan kicked Team Skeptic's ass.
Yeah. I think I can handle, like, a lot of the guys that you referring to, but they swear too much just for me, you know?
the Team
And...
Skeptic guys.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you want to be derogatory, you can call me names all day, but I mean, cut down on the swearing. At least because then what it does is it allows it allows a different group of people to come in and listen to it. Because if I don't feel comfortable listening to it, then there's probably thousands of other people that are missing out on these debates.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think
You
that
know,
it's
because of my
definitely
language.
better to have cordial conversations like what we're having.
Yeah.
So I totally agree.
Yeah.
That's why I think Nathan totally won in that debate. He's just Team Skeptic got too riled up and he lost his composure.
What do you think about Dell?
Who's Dell? I haven't heard of him.
He's a guy, he lives in Scotland. His YouTube channel is Beyond the Imaginary Curve.
Oh yeah, I've seen him.
Okay, yeah.
I haven't really watched a lot of his stuff because I deal more with philosophy. So
Okay. Like, what's your philosophy background? I mean, you say that you're atheist, you know, so how have you decided that there is no creator?
well, I say there is no reason to believe in a God, so I take the more lacktheist definition, and I say that all of the evidence and arguments can be shown not to work, and there's good reasons to believe there isn't specific kinds of gods, like the Christian God I think doesn't exist because of the problem of suffering. I think it's a good reason not to believe in the Christian God. But it doesn't disprove all possible gods, like there could be a deistic kind of God. So when I say there is no God, I mean specifically like there is no Christian God.
Okay.
And the reason I'm an atheist is because there's no evidence for any kind of God.
Do you fall in line with, like, karma and stuff like that? Would you agree with something that's given and you take back, and then whatever you do, you get back at you?
No, not exactly. I don't believe that's anything like that. I think everything is just matter in motion, purely materialist, physical.
So your experience here in this reality is literal random happenstance.
Well, determined. I would go more determined. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I mean, fair enough, because your observations are going to reveal to you how you feel, if it's random or kind of your moment of truth, if you will, where you got to make a decision, you know. So, I mean, how many people have presented to you the gospel, or do you have like a background in Catholicism?
Oh yeah, for sure. I was brought up Christian. I read the Bible cover to cover multiple times.
Yeah.
My job, when I say philosophy, the thing I debate most is the existence of God. So I invite on professors of philosophy.
No, it doesn't.
I agree. But so I invite on professors and philosophers to talk about the subject, like worldview and experts in cosmology and philosophy, and to debate these issues. So yeah, I'm pretty familiar with this.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, in a sense, right before you die, right? I'd love for you to believe in God. But as you're here in this reality, and I hope that you stay safe, you're good here because you challenge Christians in their beliefs, and you challenge me to why do you think 5G causes coronavirus symptoms, you know? And it seems like both of us are still kind of on our path. Like, it doesn't look like I left some breadcrumbs for you to check out, you know, very much. But, I mean, it was a good discussion. But, yeah, I mean, have you ever heard of a guy named Lee Strobel?
Yes, I've actually talked with them before via email. This
Yeah.
Case for Christ.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get him on my channel for an interview, but he's booked all the way from 2020. So.
Oh, really? Yeah. I mean, I always like offer that information to somebody who, grew up. Because I mean, it seems like from me being out here, I've been doing this for 3 years. Mostly what I do is flat Earth, but since this started up, I just wanted to challenge a person's ideals about what's valid and authoritative content. And so most people who, no offense, who kind of hate God in a sense, like just, the suffering thing I get, they had a background in Catholicism, So it's unfortunate that the Catholic Church has turned away so many people from growing up in a different reality of what it's like to worship our Creator without having a taskmaster in a sense, or, this Catholic authority figure over you. And because I've been, like, when I believed for the first time in 2006, for the first couple of years, I went to all sorts of different churches, and I went to a Catholic church and the Mass, and I was like, oh my gosh, help me, please, this is so boring.
Yeah, I went to a Catholic school.
Like
every Wednesday, every Sunday. Like, oh,
yeah, and I just encourage you, that's not at all how God is. He allows freedom and movement in the Holy Spirit to just let you be who you are, and you'll hone in on your purpose, whatever that is here,
Yeah, well, thanks. It was an interesting conversation. I gotta start heading home because I got.
No, I appreciate you stopping. I mean, it was challenging to hear your views on the 5G stuff. Do you support like transhumanism and this idea that you can live forever through electronic means, like downloading your consciousness into?
I definitely hope so. I mean, I don't think we can do it yet, but I hope we can do it in the future for sure.
Yeah, because I think that 5G would allow a lot more autonomy with robots and various like cars and stuff, because right now there's a latency between communication, and I think 5G or maybe even 6G would allow the instantaneous communication for an autonomous car or whatever. But again, I feel like it's poisoning the environment, or the ether, if you will, in which we experience our reality. And as just, organic entities, I don't think it's an environment that we should stay in, which is why I think the whole second wave that's going to come up here in the fall, there's suggestion of COVID, yeah. And there's suggestion of how when they introduce kids back into school, they've been installing 5G towers in a lot of the schools. And when they start slowly amplifying those towers, you may have children getting sick. Is that something that could be possible? Could you correlate children getting sick with COVID when they go back to school based on the frequencies that are emitted out of these towers?
No, not really. Because especially because kids are unaffected by the virus. Like
Currently.
Pretty much ever. I think the percent of kids who die from it is like 0.0000001 something.
Yeah, I think 1 out of the entire world right now has passed away from it.
Yeah, so the only people who are at risk are the old people for the most part, and people with pre-existing conditions.
Right.
But it's definitely not related to 5G, because 5G physically can't do that. Unless you're right and there's this other non-physical thing, that's the ether, and that 5G affects the ether in some way. If we're just looking at physical forces known from science, it's physically impossible for 5G to cause COVID. Because to do that, it would have to construct a virus. Like a virus it's not just like a cell, like cancer, where cancer is like a deviant cell that has a genetic mutation, it's just replicating multiple times without stopping.
Is a cancer, just real quick, is a cancer cell kind of a barometer of the sickness in your body and it's detoxifying itself?
No, I don't think so. I wouldn't say
like
that.
a tumor, like all the poison goes into that tumor?
No, a cancer cell is just any normal human cell that has the replication function has been broken. So it's like a faucet that just turns on and doesn't stop flowing. So the cell just keeps replicating and replicating and replicating. It builds up and causes problems. That's all cancer is.
Yeah.
So radiation can cause cancer for sure, but it can't cause viruses, because a virus is a completely separate organism in your body. It would have to spontaneously create life inside of you, and that life would have to have a specific organization and DNA structure of the virus, and then it would have to go around and kill things. So it would go around and multiply in your body. So 5G can't cause any viruses or COVID.
Could it oscillate certain bad cells in a way to where a person could allegedly view it under an electron microscope?
Yeah,
To
it's
where
possible that-
and just for example, like the cell is showing radiation poisoning instead of a sickness.
Yeah, it's possible.
Is that possible?
That's certain levels of radiation can cause radiation poisoning and can cause cancer. Yes, that's possible. I wouldn't say it's in the case of 5G because again, it's not at a high enough frequency that could cause that damage to a cell. But it is possible that it can cause cancer if you have a high enough frequency. But it's not possible for it to generate spontaneous viruses in your body, which are like literal life forms with thousands and thousands of organized DNA structure in a very specific way that if anything were different, it would kill the virus. Like if 5G could spontaneously create life in your body, that would be extremely impressive. So it definitely doesn't do that. But it could potentially cause cancer. That would be a legitimate argument you could make. But anyway, it was great talking.
Hey, you too. What's your name again?
Tom
Joshua, man.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too, Tom. Probably see you around.
Yeah, check out my YouTube channel if you can.
Yeah, what is it again? Just so everybody can hear it.
YouTube.com/TJump. TJump.
Okay, yeah.
Awesome. Talk to you later.
Yeah, take care, man. You gonna go on to Nathan Oakley's chat anytime soon?
Maybe, because again, I don't do much with the flat earth stuff. I do usually do philosophy.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Fair enough, man.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, man.
See you.
See ya. Yeah, I guess I see things differently than he would. It's always constant. Everybody, who has a high disregard for God grew up in the Catholic Church. And I don't know, like I don't want to be right about 5G or 4G or all of this need for technology and wireless communication and autonomous cars and e-learning and the ability to, have virtual reality seamlessly in your home with no delay and almost like fall into that reality where you would rather be there than in this reality because this reality sucks with social distancing. How is that not affecting human beings? I don't see it. I don't feel comfortable thinking that the technology that we use, like on our ears, like with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, isn't affecting us. I think it's slowly. I think it's on such a slow scale that as human beings, like sooner or later, it's gonna affect us. And maybe right now we're just not seeing any effect to it. But 50 years from now we might, and we need to do something about it now. He thinks it's funny, but he's not wearing a mask. Weird. So, I don't know, whatever. Alright, zoom out. That was the time to hit him with the COVID fact that, he spoke of the electron microscope. That was the time to hit him with the fact COVID-19 has never been isolated. And, the idea of like masks. COVID-19 is 0.0125. He thinks it's funny. And the mask thing doesn't work because it's only supposed to stop, 0.03 microns? He can come back, he can check the chat and listen and read the chat, Read the chat. Rick Rude.
That's possible.
COVID 33, flip flat. I mean, these people, like, this guy, people think, like, I have all the answers. Why can't I open it? And, I'm not out here to convince anybody. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing is, like, everybody, like, who has a conversation with somebody that they know they're not going to agree with, they think like it's a competition and it's about getting into fisticuffs for calling somebody a name and swearing and whatnot. You know, if you believe that we went to the moon, then you have to believe that there's stuff on the moon that's reflecting laser light. I don't believe we landed there. It's that simple. Like, I don't know how I need to make it like a freaking Oakley debate here. I'm a simple guy. I'm simple. We never landed on the moon, so you know what I mean? Like, why do I have to get into like this debate on science and try to like use his? She thinks it's funny, so funny, but she won't chat, and she's not wearing a mask. Weird. Careful, bud. I'm simple. Like, you know, I mean,